Have you ever looked at your cat and wondered, what is he actually trying to tell me right now? If that sounds familiar, you've probably already noticed that cats don't use words, but they're communicating constantly, just in a language most people never learn to read. That's exactly what we're going to fix over the next few minutes. I'm going to walk you through how to decode what your cat is really feeling, using body posture, sound, scent, and the small everyday gestures cats make all the time. By the end, you won't just be watching your cat anymore, you'll be listening to him. Let's start with the tail, because it's arguably the most expressive part of a cat's body. When the tail is held straight up with a slight curve at the tip that almost looks like a question mark, that usually means the cat is confident, relaxed, and open to interacting with you. It's basically a feline, "Hey, how's it going?" On the other hand, when the tail is low, pressed against the body, or tucked between the legs, the meaning shifts completely. That posture usually signals fear, insecurity, or discomfort. There's also the puffed up tail, sometimes called the bottle brush tail, where the fur stands completely on end. That's a defensive reaction, an attempt to look bigger and scarier in front of something the cat perceives as a threat. And then there's the fast, sharp swish or thump against the floor, which almost always means irritation building up. Think of it as your cat's early warning system, telling you that whatever is happening right now needs to stop soon. Here's the interesting part though. Context changes everything. A low tail during hunting doesn't mean fear at all, it means focus. The cat is locking onto a toy, an insect, or anything that triggered that predator instinct. So never read a single signal in isolation. It's always the full picture that tells the real story. That brings us straight to the ears, which work almost like an emotional radar. Ears facing forward in a relaxed position show a calm cat that's simply interested in what's happening around it. When the ears become upright and a bit more tense, that can mean alertness or even excitement about play. Not necessarily something negative. Sometimes you'll notice the ears swiveling independently, almost like little satellite dishes. That's just your cat actively gathering information from every direction, which is completely normal behavior. The real warning sign is when the ears flatten sideways or backward, something often nicknamed airplane ears. That usually points to fear, irritation, or a defensive reaction. And when one ear points forward while the other tilts back, that's often a sign of ambivalence. Your cat genuinely isn't sure yet how he feels about the situation. If you notice flattened ears, the best move is to give the cat space rather than trying to pick him up or handle him in that moment. Now, let's talk about the eyes, because this is one of the most touching signals in feline communication. The slow blink. When a cat looks at you and blinks slowly, almost in slow motion, he's essentially telling you that he trusts you and feels safe in your presence. Some researchers even call it a cat kiss. If you want to test that connection yourself, try it back. Look at your cat and blink slowly. Often he'll return the gesture, and that small exchange actually strengthens the bond between you two. Dilated pupils tell a more complicated story though. They can mean excitement, fear, or heightened alertness, so once again, context matters. A cat with dilated pupils mid-play is in a completely different state than one with dilated pupils hiding under the couch. Narrow, slit-like pupils, meanwhile, usually show up in bright light, but they can also appear when a cat is tense, focused, or mildly annoyed. Whiskers are often overlooked, but they're constantly sending signals too, alongside their other job as sensory tools that help a cat judge distances, feel air currents, and even figure out whether a gap is wide enough to fit through. When the whiskers rest in a neutral position, slightly out to the sides, that reflects a calm, comfortable cat. When they push forward and fan out, that usually means curiosity, excitement, or focused interest. You'll often catch this right before your cat pounces on a toy. And when the whiskers pull back tightly against the face, that's typically a sign of fear, stress, or even pain, especially when it shows up together with flattened ears and a tense body. Learning to notice the whiskers gives you an earlier warning than almost any other signal, because they tend to shift before the rest of the body catches up. Speaking of communication, let's talk about meowing, because here's a detail most people don't know. Adult cats barely meow at each other at all. Meowing is essentially a language cats developed specifically to communicate with humans. That's the result of thousands of years living alongside us. Cats learned that meowing works on people, and over time they refined that sound to get results. What's even more interesting is that each cat develops a somewhat unique vocabulary with their own owner. The meow your cat uses to ask for food can sound completely different from the one he uses to ask for attention, and over time, you naturally learn to tell them apart. There's also a lighter, quicker sound worth knowing, the trill or chirrup, that rolling little burp noise. It's typically a friendly greeting, often used when a cat is approaching you or inviting you to follow him somewhere, and it tends to carry a much warmer, more affectionate tone than a standard meow. Purring is even more complex than it seems on the surface. The popular explanation is that purring simply means, "I'm happy." And that's true a lot of the time. Cats purr when they're relaxed, being petted, or close to someone they trust. But researchers have found that purring goes far beyond that. Some cats purr when they're stressed, in pain, or even injured, using it as a way to self-soothe. There's even a theory that the vibration frequency of a purr, somewhere around 25 Hz, may help with tissue and bone healing, functioning almost like a built-in physical therapy session. And there's another specific type, known as the solicitation purr, that cats use when they want food. Researchers found that this version carries a higher-pitched sound hidden inside it, almost like a cry, which quietly triggers human caregiving instincts. In other words, your cat might be subtly manipulating you into feeding him faster. And the impressive part is that it actually works. Let's move to overall body posture. When a cat lies stretched out on his back with his belly exposed, that's an extreme sign of vulnerability. He's showing the most unprotected part of his body. It usually signals deep trust in the environment and whoever is nearby. But here's an important warning. An exposed belly is not automatically an invitation for belly rubs. Plenty of cats feel comfortable showing their belly, but respond with a swat or a bite the moment you actually touch it. Some owners call this the belly trap. The cat trusts you, but that doesn't necessarily mean he wants to be touched there. Another classic behavior is kneading. That rhythmic pressing motion cats do with their paws on a soft surface, like your lap or a blanket. This goes back to kittenhood, when kneading the mother's belly helped stimulate milk production. In adulthood, the behavior sticks around as a sign of comfort, satisfaction, and deep relaxation. It's basically your cat's way of saying he feels completely at ease. And what about an arched back with fur standing on end, that classic spooked cat silhouette? That's a defensive display. The goal is to appear bigger and more intimidating in the face of a perceived threat, whether that's another animal, a loud noise, or an unfamiliar situation. Interestingly, cats can also arch their backs during play in a lighter, bouncier way. The difference is usually in the rest of the body, since a playful arch comes with relaxed whiskers and a loose, springy posture, while a defensive arch comes with flattened ears and stiff, tense muscles. In defensive moments, the best thing to do is give the cat space and avoid approaching suddenly, letting him settle down on his own timeline. There's one more form of communication that's easy to miss because it doesn't involve sound or posture at all. Scent. When your cat rubs his head, cheek, or the side of his body against your leg, a door frame, or a piece of furniture, he's not just being affectionate, even though affection is part of it. Cats have scent glands around the face, and that rubbing behavior deposits their own scent onto you and onto their environment. Essentially, your cat is marking you as part of his territory and his social group, a mix of I trust you and you belong to me, rolled into one gesture. It's one of the clearest signs that a cat considers you family. Putting all of this together, you start to see that understanding a cat isn't about memorizing a checklist of isolated signals. It's about reading the whole picture at once. Tail, ears, eyes, whiskers, posture, sound, and even scent, all together within the context of what's actually happening. A low tail by itself could mean hunting or fear. Upright ears by themselves could mean alertness or playfulness. It's the combination of signals plus the surrounding situation that reveals what your cat is really feeling. If you want to put this into practice, here's a simple approach. Spend a few minutes each day just observing without trying to interact. Notice how your cat's tail, ears, and whiskers behave when he's fully relaxed. So you build a baseline for what normal looks like for him specifically. Since every cat has his own personality and range of expression, then, when something changes, you'll catch it immediately. Respond to slow blinks with slow blinks. Approach calmly instead of reaching straight for the belly or the head. And whenever you see mixed or tense signals, give space rather than pushing for contact. Trust builds much faster when a cat feels like interactions are always his choice, not something forced onto him. At the end of the day, learning to read a cat is a lot like learning a new language. It feels confusing at first, but the more attention you pay to the small details, the more naturally the patterns start to click. And the payoff is a much smoother relationship with fewer misunderstandings and a much deeper connection with your feline companion. So the next time your cat gives you a slow blink, holds his tail in that question mark curve, rubs his cheek against your leg, or starts purring in your lap, you'll know exactly what that means. And that changes everything about how the two of you connect day to day.